if you could die cut, 2D emboss, and 3D emboss with only 2 plates? Hi everyone, I'm Gina from Gina K Designs, and today I'm going to show you how you can do that using the Intricut die cutting and embossing machine. When you get your Intricut die cutting embossing machine, you're going to find that you can do amazing things with it with only 2 plates. When you get your Intricut and you take it out of the box, you might notice that there isn't a handle on this side. So let me show you where to find the handle. All you're going to do is open up one of the sides, and you're going to open up these nifty little drawers, and your handle is going to be tucked away inside. To attach the handle to the Intricut die cutting machine, there's a little lever right here, and you just pull it down. Slip it on like that, and it snaps right into place. You can take it back off by pulling that same lever and pulling the handle off, and you can store it inside the drawer. On the opposite side of the machine, you're going to see a dial at the top, and this dial determines whether you're going to die cut, 2D emboss or letterpress, or 3D emboss. And the difference between die cutting, letterpress, or 3D embossing is as simple as turning the dial to the one that you want. Now down here is our tension knob. This allows you to tighten or loosen the tension depending on whether or not the die is an intricate die, the embossing folder is a little bit thicker, or a little bit thinner. You're just going to press it in and you're going to turn it to tighten it, or you're going to press it in and turn it to loosen it. And you can see on the side here the word tight and loose, so you always know that you're going in the right direction for what you're trying to achieve. I recommend that you start at 0 right in the center for any embossing folder or die, just to see if that works before you tighten or loosen. That's going to preserve the integrity of your cutting mat, because if you're constantly cutting too tight, your mat's going to warp a little more quickly than the normal wear and tear. So we're going to die cut, and we're going to start by taking this top knob and turning it to the die cut position. We've got our tension knob set at 0. And then I want to show you another really cool feature of this die cutting machine. When you open the machine and you press the platform in, it suctions to your table. You can essentially die cut with just one hand. There's only 2 mats that come standard with the machine. It is the white platform, and this is not a cutting surface. And then we've got our cutting mat. It's a 6x9 cutting mat, and it's recommended that as you cut, you flip it over each time you cut, and that helps to prevent warping. I'm going to start with our snowflake embossing folder, and I'm going to use a piece of cardstock. I'm just going to slip that inside the embossing folder like that. Now, because you only need 2 plates, the sandwich is always the same. You're going to start with the platform. You're going to lay your embossing folder on top with your cardstock inside, and then you're going to put your cutting mat on top. And then we're going to run this through the machine. You don't even have to hold on to the machine. You can do this all with one hand. And you can see we've got this beautiful snowflake impression. Now we're going to do a 3D embossing folder. 3D folders are a little touchy because every manufacturer makes their 3D folders a different thickness. So you are going to have to play with your machine just a little bit to find the right sandwich that works for you. But with only 2 plates, you're bound to find it pretty easily. I'm going to be using a Sizzix embossing folder, and Sizzix makes their folders very thick. So this one is an easy one because you won't even need the top plate. You're going to have your platform. You're going to take your cardstock and put it inside the 3D embossing folder. You want to make sure that your dial is turned to 3D, and then you're going to take the tension and you're going to turn it all the way up as tight as you can because you're not going to use the top plate. So we're going to turn that all the way up, and then we're going to run this through the machine. And look at all of that gorgeous 3D texture you get. Now, of course, you can always spray your cardstock with a little light mist of water if your cardstock cracks, but so far, both of these designs have looked really great, and there's no cracking at all. Now I'm going to show you 2 techniques for die cutting. Both of these we're going to be using the MISTI stamping tool because I love using the MISTI to get a nice crisp impression. And this is the Scrapbook.com exclusive MISTI in their gorgeous rose quartz color. So I'm going to put a piece of white cardstock in here, up here into the corner. And then I'm going to be using an image from the Thoughtful Flowers collection. This is a Gina K Designs collection, and it comes with stamps, dies, and some surprise little coloring stencils. The stamp and the die bundle is available, and the coloring stencils are sold separately. So I'm going to stamp this large image, this large floral. Get that right on there. I'm going to move the magnet out of the way. I have faith that I'm not going to need it. Okay. So I'm going to use some blue denim ink. You can use any color ink you want, and I'm going to stamp this image. So I've got my image here. I'm going to get the die cutting machine, and we're going to cut this out. For die cutting, we always want to make sure that we're set to the die cut setting, and then I'm always going to start at 0, right in the center. Now I'm going to show you a little trick for die cutting and getting your die cuts centered every time. I love this little trick. It has bailed me out many times. So I have an extra little piece of cardstock here. I'm going to cut out a template using the Intricut. I like to use masking magic strips to secure my dies in place. So I'm going to get one of the 1/2-inch strips. These are a very low tack tape. They come in 3 different sizes, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, and 1/2 inch, all inside this same pack. And you can create fun borders and patterns using these with ink blending, but they're also great for this technique for die cutting. So I'm going to take a 1/2-inch strip. I'm just going to pop it here on top of my die cutting machine. You may have noticed earlier in the video I had a strip up here. I always keep a strip up here because it's just quick and easy to grab. And I'm going to just tack that down and run this through the machine and cut this out. So now I've created a little template using my Intricut. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lay this piece right down here, and we're just going to tape that down so it doesn't shift. Then I'm going to lay this template I made right on top. I'm going to turn it until it looks perfect. And I want to make sure that all the white edges around the outside look even. And I'm going to take a little more of this masking magic, and I'm going to hold that in place. Now I'm going to take my die, and I'm going to lay the die on top until I feel it snap inside of that little template that I made. You can feel it sink down, and you'll feel it snap in there. And then I'm going to tape the die down, and then I'm going to cut it. This is going to give me a very nicely centered die cut. And I can use that same template over and over again. And look at that. Now I'm going to show you another trick to perfectly center your die cut images if you're looking to mass produce. This is a fun way to make lots of cards all at once, and you don't have to really struggle too much with the die cutting portion of this if you do this trick. So I'm going to start with my stamp, and I'm going to stamp this right in the center of this piece of white cardstock. Now this trick you have to actually start from scratch each time you want to mass produce, because it is a little bit difficult to reposition this stamp once you clean it and take it off of your MISTI. So you're going to leave it right here, and I'm going to stamp that. Then I'm going to take my Intricut. I'm going to take a piece of pink cardstock, it can be any color you want, and I'm going to create a little template, just like I did before. And we're going to run that through the Intricut. Then I'm going to keep this piece, And then I'm going to cut a few blank die cut pieces. So if you want to make 10 cards, cut 10 blanks. If you want to make 20, cut 20 blanks. And we're going to get rid of this one. Now, why am I not using this one? I really like the color contrast to be able to see how I'm lining things up. So you're going to see that in just a minute. With my piece of cardstock still in place and my stamp still in place, I'm going to lay this template on top and make sure that this is perfectly centered how I want it. And I'm going to once again use my masking magic to tack this down and keep it in place. And I'm going to tape it down on all 4 sides just to make sure that it stays in place. Now I've created a template where I can drop in these blank pieces over my original one, and I can stamp these and get a perfectly centered blank image. And to pull these off, all you have to do is just take a little piece of masking magic, pop it in there, and that'll lift it up enough that you can get your finger under there and pull it out. So you can see how easy it is to continue to pop these in place, stamp them, and have perfectly centered images over and over again. You can see you can mass produce these by using this little template trick with your Intricut die cutting machine. Recently, we came out with a magnetic platform for the Intricut die cutting machine, and I want to show you how easy it is to use. So this is a 3-piece set, but once you put C onto the platform, that becomes your platform base. So you only want to cut on this side of the mat. This side here, it says this is not a cutting surface, this is the magnet, so M is for magnet. And this plate is a magnetic base. Now the cool thing about this is the whole thing is one giant magnet. And that's going to make it super easy for you to position your die wherever you want on the magnet and not have to worry about it jumping a little bit. The other side is just open. It's got some open holes in there. And then we're going to take this C plate and we're going to pop it onto the magnetic platform, and this whole thing becomes your magnetic platform and cutting mat in one. Then we have a clear plate on top, and that is how we're going to cut. Again, it's going to end up being just 2 pieces. Your controls on the side of the Intricut die cutting machine are going to stay exactly the same whether you use the original platform set or the magnetic platform. And all you're going to do is lay your piece of cardstock with your stamped image on top, and then you're going to position this exactly where you want it. Once that's positioned where you want it, it is magnetized, it's stuck down on there really nicely. You can just put your clear plate on top and you can run it through. And that's going to eliminate the need for any kinds of tapes to hold things down. It's going to stay exactly where you want it, and you're going to get a perfect cut every time. I do recommend using the original plates anytime you want to 2D or 3D emboss or do any letterpress techniques. But for die cutting, the magnetic platform set is a dream come true. The Intricut die cutting and embossing machine takes the complicated guesswork out of the proper sandwiches for die cutting and embossing. Get your Intricut at Scrapbook.com today.